Hello there. Uh, Dan and I would like to welcome you to the league name TBD No Fun League podcast. We're supposed to have a couple guests with us tonight, both bailed. So,
What up? What up? What up? We got the playoff preview. It's crazy how it goes from one of the biggest podcast episodes ever, potentially, to just two dudes in their rooms talking some ball.
yeah, there was a lot of potential on this one. I was most excited to get, a view of from where the other half lives. Both of us are seeing this week from the mountaintop. Wanted to get a few opinions from the peasants. We've been talking. We're both feeling good, but we'll get into exactly what we think's going to go down this week and maybe a little bit finals talk. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but before we do that, we just want to take a look back because Rome was not built in a day, especially for some of the squads in this postseason. And what we expected out of this season is not exactly what unfolded. So we just thought it would be fun to tell the story of these four teams that are about to square off in the Coliseum of league name TBD. So Dan took two, I took two. We have each other, so there was no bias there. But Dan, I don't know if you want to talk about us first or our friends that are not with us right now.
Yes, let's start it off with Wit, our four seed. I think we could start four, work our way to one. Um,
Okay.
yes, like you said, football, it's not just X and O's. It's not just points on your sleeper app. There's stories here. And where we dug out those stories tonight. So Witt won the league in 2021. He was our third league champion. Um, Looking back, he went 10 and 4 that year. Previously, he had made the playoffs in 2019, our first season, and he has not made the playoffs since. He's missed twice since 2021. So this will be his first playoff appearance since he won his ring. Um, like I said, it's been two rough years since he won the ring, actually. Looking back, last year, Witt went 4 and 11. And I don't think he won a ton of games the year before. Yep, he
Dang.
was the 9 seed behind Pat. Um, so safe to say, coming into the season, expectations were low for Witt. Many people, once again, I think we've heard this narrative before, where we're saying it might be time to sell, it might be time to look to the future, and some excellent drafting this year and a big time offseason bet on Saquon Barkley um, turned it around. Preseason rankings, which was post Barkley trade, Ryan had Luke at 8. I had him at 7. Um, Both of us saw potential upside there, but I mean, I don't think either of us had high expectations. I think we both thought he would be kind of in Zach's shoes, kind of
Yeah.
flaming out onto next year. Some great drafting. Nix is obviously a game changer, a home run. Makes that quarterback room look tremendous with Hurts.
It
Um,
does.
yes, looking, he went 9 and 6 this year, four seed. He lost this week to clinch himself the 4 seed, and he's taking you on. And it looks like he was third in points scored this year. So
Yeah. Um, it was a great season. As you mentioned, we didn't necessarily see it coming. I remember saying it during that rankings episode that we wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see anyone in that top eight sneak in. And like you said, top three in points, I wouldn't exactly call sneaking in, but he did just barely make the cut here at the 4 seed. Certainly not a team that we are looking past. Um, it's a good squad top to bottom. We'll get into what I think will happen this week later. But yeah, I mean, he did the opposite of what everyone was saying, and who knows? It just might net him the league's first ever second ring. So
there are three of us gunning for it.
yeah, the one that's not gunning for it is who will take on next our third seed, Nico Ellis and the Big Steppers. So Nico, as those of you out there may remember, was given a huge heap of garbage in the year 2020. Bunch of quarterbacks and tight ends that eked their way into the NFL or Dynasty Fantasy Football's top 70 players at the time. I was doing a scan and it was a little hard to fact check each and every one, but I am pretty confident that not a single name on this roster was awarded to him through that startup expansion draft, whatever it was. Uh, Nico named his team the Big Steppers after Kendrick Lamar, but I think a much more accurate term would be the Little Steppers because one, I hope that catches on and it sounds kind of insulting, and two, because this team was a labor of love. Looking just at the guys coming into these playoffs, Jared Goff, an acquisition in the year 2024. Joe Mixon, year 2024 acquisition. Same goes for Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, TJ Hockenson, and CJ Stroud. And then everyone I did not just name that I believe has a chance. Oh, also DeAndre Swift was in that. Everyone I did not name that I think has a single chance of starting or likely will start, like Brees, Bijan, Marv, Neighbors, were all drafted as a result of very poor seasons the last 3 years that ultimately have paid off. And to take a look at those rankings you had pulled up, Dan, you had Nico at the 3 going in, and I had him at the 2. So to see him here is not necessarily a surprise at all. But this team is unrecognizable from the one we ranked, and a lot of credit to him for getting that done. A lot of guys didn't make the cut that made this journey with him, but you know, it's a shame. I'm sure they're looking from the spirit realm, happy to see where the final product ended up.
I hope
Um,
Darrell Henderson is smiling.
yes, he is. Now, Nico, um, some may say, had a lucky-ish year in that he was fifth in points for. But honestly, we were all close. And yeah, he put together a great team, combined the young and the old, and he is ready to take on the Funky Bunch. And that's the story of Nico Ellis.
Coming to the Funky Bunch. Yeah, I mean, like you said, giant pile of garbage in 2020 to start. We don't got to look through his records since obviously his first playoff appearance, obviously a hell of a job building that team. You talked about it. He's been busy this year. I until you really zoom out like that, don't really think about how many contending trades Nico's been making this year. And like you said, it's paid off. He's got a great team. Um, we can get into it more what we think will happen,
Yes, we
what we're
can.
thinking about these playoffs, but tremendous job for Nico for what he's done.
If we want to take a peek at his opponent now, the Fantasy Funky Bunch, Dan's story kind of runs a different way. Certainly a lot of moves being made, one of our more active league members, but he did not come from the ashes. Dan has lived in the postseason with very little success, really, but he has lived in the postseason throughout our league's history. Did some quick digging, and this might not be 100% accurate, but I feel kind of good about it. You have made the playoffs all 5 years. Zach has made the playoffs 4 of those years. Brennan has made the playoffs 3 of those years, and no one else has made it more than two. So you really stand alone amongst the top there. Um,
Witt is at 3 now, but
uh,
yes.
this is oh no, never mind. I guess that wow, we still only have 4 people with 3 or more.
I've never missed and we're adding a playoff spot. So we're looking to keep that one running for a while.
Yeah. Well, Dan's team was also the
His
product of a
fantasy funky bunch.
yes, it was also the product of 1,000 maneuvers, but this one spread out over many more years. Josh Allen was an acquisition a while back, as was every member of this receiving core except CeeDee Lamb, who you drafted.
Traded for
Um,
his pick though.
you what?
I traded for the pick that drafted him.
Very true. So, yeah. Um, and then pretty much everyone else on the roster has been traded for as well. Pollard, I saw, I did not know this until a couple hours ago, was a waiver acquisition. And assuming he's healthy, he should be in the roster, it appears, to this weekend.
Nervous, he might not play.
Yeah, we'll see, man.
Might
But
have to look back to ETN.
can't escape him. Moral
No.
of the story is Dan has made a lot of savvy maneuvers through this league's history that have kept him well in the race. And if we want to look at those rankings again, you had yourself at 1 and I had you at 2. So you've never been a team that many have doubted. And as far as making the playoffs goes, people would have been foolish to doubt you ever. And here we are again, hoping to make it 2 out of 6 first rounds made.
Correct. 2 out of 6 championship appearances would be nice. The playoff appearance numbers are interesting. It'd be interesting to hear the championship appearance numbers too. Yeah, we got where we're
Disappointed
supposed
we
to
didn't
be.
pack him
Not
in.
a perfect ride. Um, but I think we finished first in points for again. And I feel great about the unit going into the playoffs. We are where we're supposed to be. 2 wins.
That's all it takes, man.
All right, and that leaves us with our 1 seed, Mr. Linthorst.
So,
Um, a great season this year, an interesting ride to get here to say the least. Of course, a one of the most storied franchises of the league. 2019, you went 8-6 and won the league or won the first league playoffs, our first league name TBD championship. Um, Famously followed by a league tradition that hopefully Jesse hopes to uphold this year. Our first to worst in 2020. And similar to Luke, this week's playoff appearance will be your first playoff game since your championship. So, whereas I have been a historic playoff loser, you boast a 2-0 record going into these playoffs in the postseason.
that is correct.
Yes. And when you really dig into it, it's kind of an interesting ride when you look at where this team's been since that 2019 ring. I don't know if you know this. You'd probably have an idea of it, but 2020, 4 wins. 2021, 6 wins. 2022, 8 wins. 2023, 9 wins. And the 5 seed missing out on points scored. And then this year, 2024, 11-4. You got your 1 seed. You're back in the playoffs. Obviously a tremendous year for you. You made some great some great management going into the super flex change to lock up. I mean, what is going into this postseason probably the best quarterback room standing. Um, so yeah, great work. It took time, but it's been a clear, consistent build. You've been adding players consistently year over year, and the Detroit core has just hit for you this year. Um, Preseason rankings, we both had you at 4. So similarly, you were a team that we both expected to be right in the thick of it. Um, and my direct quote in those rankings, because obviously I questioned your receiver room going in, was if 2 or 3 of the guys in your receiver room besides Amon Ra can hit, you're off and running. And
Look
I
at that.
mean, McLaurin and Sutton have been giant successes this year for you. They've been huge contributors, plus guys in your wide receiver 2 and 3 spots, and you've been humming. Your team's absolutely a force to be reckoned with in these playoffs.
Yeah. I'm feeling good. I just remembering my journey to where we are today is something. Blowing up a core that most of these guys are, I mean, literally Stephon Diggs is hurt, but Mike Evans and Devontae Adams alone put up 90 last week, and I moved on from them in 2019. Um, I just I would not recommend anything I did really along the way. Entering a rebuild right as we add two permanent installments at the bottom of every draft.
That was definitely the worst of it.
Probably should have realized what I was getting myself into when we started talking expansion at the time, but we lived and we learned. Busting on many a draft pick. And pretty much this team, as you pointed out, was built year over year with very slight improvements, most huge overpays at the time that I just believed in. So I'm not going to give myself no credit here. But yeah, I we also have our homegrown talent. We've had Terry since 2019, Sutton since 2020. I bring it up every week. Nobody checks the chat, but yeah, very excited to be back in the show. Very excited at our first one seed, I think ever really, solo one
Yep,
seed. So yeah, exciting stuff.
that it
Now
is.
let's talk playoffs. Um, we'll start with my matchup. I got some shit to say. Now we have the one seed versus the four seed. Uh, Maximum Aura versus the Certified Lover Boys. Now, a lot has gone on, I think, that might fly under the radar. Um, there's my notes. Um, so yeah, I just want to break down this matchup, see it how I see it. I'm gonna come out and say it. I think I win this one. I think Luke has the Hurts and Saquon stack against Washington. That was good for 50 something points a couple weeks ago. I think the Commanders have way too much pride to let Saquon run for like 200 yards again. And I think they say what everyone wanted us to do last week, which is if you have this passing game, I want to see you use it. And Jalen Hurts is good, and our receivers are good, and we will use it, and we will win. But for someone with a Hurts Saquon stack, that is far less profitable than three combined touchdowns and like 250 yards on the ground between the two of them. So I have a solid feeling that that won't be a huge hindrance in our effort to win this one. I think Josh Jacobs does what he does. Picture of consistency all year. I hope it's not too big. He could have a big day. We shall see. Cooper Kupp under 10 points in two of the last three, including a 0 last week. Again, could go out and give 15. No one's surprised, but I am not particularly afraid, if
Could
I
go
may
out and get
say.
28 and no one would be surprised.
Well, I would be a little surprised, but I hope the trend as of late continues. George Pickens coming off the hamstring. He went for 16 the last time he played Baltimore. Maybe it takes him down a couple. I don't know. Judy, no one's probably looking at this, but Judy no longer has Jameis Winston slanging the rock. I think the Browns throttle back on the passing game a lot. I think DTR just isn't that good at throwing the ball outside the numbers, throwing the ball deep. So I'm excited to face Jerry Judy, and I feel okay saying that because I scoped out the bench. I'm not really too afraid of anyone that would be subbed in his place either. Um, and then from the rest of the lineup down, they all have great matchups and are solid players. Chuba Hubbard, Bucky Irving, Bo Nix, all playing green teams this week. Trey McBride against one of the worst tight end defenses in the league really scares me. But I think there's a cap on where this roster is going to score this week, probably in the 140 to 155 range. Now we go over that a decent amount, and we have some worries of our own. Terry McLaurin visits Quinyanamo Bay this week. That was a 2 point matchup a couple weeks ago, so I'm a little worried about that. To be honest, I kind of want to bench him, but we're going to let him ride, I think, because he's just our heart and soul. And Lamar faces Pittsburgh, which was a 16-point outing last time, which I'm not over the moon about. But I mean, we got Jahmyr Gibbs, green matchup, backfield to himself. Isaac Guerendo, green matchup, backfield to himself. Jerome Ford, green matchup, backfield to himself. Jordan Love against New Orleans, New Orleans, I'm okay with. Terry, I talked about Amon Ra. I don't care that he's against Chicago. He's going to get his. And Pat Fryermuth has been pretty fucking good as of late, pretty solid. So I think we win this one by about 10 points. And I think we head to the final.
Yeah, interesting. Hard for me to confidently say otherwise. I mean, I think if I was betting, if I could bet on it, I'd probably take you by a hair, but definitely a good matchup. You talked about Luke's good. Um, sorry, you talked about Luke's running backs. They're filthy. Obviously, Gibbs is set to explode. Luke's got enough depth. You talked about both of his flex guys and his super flex spots being good players with good matchups. I think you're underestimating the ceiling that he could have. Talk about my matchup real quick. I'm going to mute myself and let my dog out real quick.
Okay. Now looking at the 2-3 matchup, obviously Destiny would tell us that the little steppers are heading into the next round. It's been in the stars before any of us were born. Loverboys Steppers final. That said, if you're going just off of appearance, uh, we could start with Dan's team. Josh Allen versus New England. I don't know that there's ever been a hotter fantasy quarterback. Two back-to-back weeks over 41 points. Sure, the New England matchup is orange on paper. I don't think it's a problem whatsoever unless the Bills were to go up huge. They've been in shootouts as of late. My only concern is that Josh only goes for 25 if I'm Dan instead of 40. James Conner had a week last week, but he's been inconsistent. Bright green matchup against Carolina. Tony Pollard plays. He's got the same. I think both of them do well. Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, and Collins, all with half decent matchups, coming off solid weeks of their own. I mean, there's not a lot of mystery with this team. Kittle will do fine. Shakir will do fine. Cooper Rush against Tampa Bay will even be serviceable, I think. And then you got Nico, who, I mean, like I said, put his entire back into this team over years and years. But looking at this matchup this week, it's going to come down to destiny if he's going to take this one. A lot of talent across the board, but Mixon has slowed down. Tyreek Hill, I mean, he's not the elite receiver, bona fide 20-pointer he has been in the past. And he's got a tough matchup this week and just tweeted something about it's time to start coaching or something. I don't know. I still don't understand what he meant. He might just be trolling. Either way, not a particular force, I don't think, this week. Devontae Adams obviously just went nuts, but I don't think the Rams let that happen 2 weeks in a row. TJ Hawkinson's been okay. Marv is up and down. Reese is up and down. Caleb's up and down. With all of them up, I think they just about rival the Funky Bunch this week, but I think Dan takes this one comfortably.
Sorry, my dog has the squirts.
Ah, happens.
Woo! I heard what he was doing out there. Crisis averted. I'm so glad I ran.
Nice.
Okay. The Funky Bunch versus the Big Steppers. there's been no shortage of praise said about the Big Steppers. Tremendous team. His quarterbacks, especially with Jameis out, and I would have really loved to have Jameis against Cincinnati this week. Um, can rival mine. You hope Josh has just a ceiling that his team doesn't have. And his running backs are really a big leg up over mine. Granted, Connor and Pollard both have good matchups. They're both guys that have been productive. Like they're dudes who I feel really solid about leaning on as my kind of weak link on my team. They've gotten me this far and been great about it. Um, and then the receivers obviously are just where we make our bread and butter, where you got to hope two of the four really explode and or one really explodes and two or three have your rock solid 22, 23, 24 point games and then the weakest gives you 15, 16. Um, if they can do that, I don't think short of I mean his whole team going off, which Nico's could because again Nico's team is excellent. Um, Short of that, I don't think he can keep up. I think the receivers will be able to make up for the difference at running back. And I think I pretty much have an edge at tight end and quarterback, if not washes. So only time will tell.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught it, but my summation was that at his ceiling, he's matching your middle. So I think it's a funky bunch week.
That's an appropriate way of putting it. I was looking through his points before you finished talking. Nico has gone over 155 points 3 times this year. He's been pretty consistently high, not a lot of dud weeks. He's been over 155 3 times. The Funky Bunch has been there
A lot more than that.
9 times.
Yeah.
Um, so like you said, I mean his ceiling I think is my ceiling. There's a world where every single spot in his starting lineup pops and there's just no touching it no matter what you do. So I think our ceilings are about the same, but I agree. I have a lot more ways to hit my ceiling outcome. I think I'm more likely to have multiple hits across the board.
Well, we're talking numbers. Luke and I averaged a difference of 1.39 points per week different. So this one will likely be pretty close.
Sounds like a nail
It is
biter.
worth noting if we look at what Luke put out last week, you'd have to go back to week 5 for the Lover Boys to have a week that bad. So I don't know. Um, yeah,
Similar, if you want to take the same stats, the Funky Bunch has been averaging 15 more points a game than the Big Steppers. Um, and with basically green light matchups across the board, short of Nico Collins and Josh Allen, but I think we have high hopes for Josh Allen against the Patriots.
yeah.
Everybody else is green matchups. I think I'm set to where hopefully my duds aren't flat duds. Hopefully they're 10, 11, 12 pointers and enough of my guys pop.
About 4 weeks ago, I became aware of your pretty much green across the board week 16. And though I didn't really, nor was I really able to steer it any kind of way, I was aware. So I'm glad it didn't end up me across from you this week because next week, not as favorable.
No,
But we'll see.
but just as talented of a team.
That is our playoff rundown. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope everybody tunes in. I want to say that we're going to give Robert Cacciabato an excused absence. Um, but Tom Griffin, his absence on tonight's show is just super indicative of what he is and who he is as a manager. And he's just not locked in. I mean, you every time you talk to him about this league, you can tell. And the last minute flakage is just another chapter in the long book of Tom Griffin not being up to TBD standards. If we wanted to boot him from this league, I would be the first and loudest voice. And I heard somewhere that Tom Griffin trying to manage and keep a good roster in league name TBD is like watching a 90-year-old try and maintain an erection. It's just not going to work for very long. So that being said, I hope everybody loved the episode. Anything else from you, Dan?
Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas indeed. Hopefully we get another ep out next week for the finals, but we'll see.